In our previous video, we explored the Garamantes, a forgotten civilization of the ancient Sahara. Once dismissed by historians as mere desert nomads, recent archaeology has revealed that they were a powerful and advanced kingdom that built cities, mastered underground irrigation with their ingenious fogaras, and controlled trade routes linking Rome to sub-Saharan Africa. In this video, we examine the interactions between the Garamantes and the Roman Empire, as well as the factors contributing to the kingdom's decline and eventual collapse. Although the Garamantes engaged in peaceful trade with Rome, their interactions were largely defined by conflict. The Garamantes often conducted raids against Roman settlements in North Africa, motivated by the wealth and valuable goods these cities possessed. In response, the Romans organized multiple punitive campaigns to counter these attacks and reassert control. The first Roman expedition against the Garamantes was carried out in 19 BC by a man named Lucius Cornelius Balbus. Likely carried out in response to raids against Roman cities, he attacked with an army of 10,000 legionnaires. He made his way down to Garamantia, capturing 15 settlements, including Garama. He then continued marching through the desert down the Gat route until reaching the Niger River. Upon his return to Rome, he was celebrated with a triumph for defeating the Garamantes and conquering the Sahara. Nearly 70 years later, in AD 50, an alliance of Saharan tribes, including the Garamantes, attacked the Roman city of Leptis Magna. Led by a man named Septimius Flaccus, the Romans successfully defeated the attack and then went on the offensive. Flaccus invaded the Garamantian kingdom, defeated them in battle, and then, like Balbus before him, continued marching south to sub-Saharan Africa. However, instead of going southwest to the Niger River, he marched directly south along the Bornu route, eventually making it to Lake Chad, where he wrote of seeing elephants and rhinoceroses. A third major conflict between the Garamantes and the Romans occurred in AD 70, the year of 4 emperors. Civil war racked the Roman world as 4 different men fought for control of the empire. The city of Oea took advantage of the chaos to attack its wealthier rival, Leptis Magna. Never passing up an opportunity to carry out a raid against Rome, the Garamantes fought alongside Oea and attacked Leptis Magna. A man named Valerius Festus was sent to quell the rebellion and expel the Garamantes, which he successfully did. Given the chaotic state of the empire, he refrained from invading the Garamantian homeland or going on an expedition to sub-Saharan Africa. After this conflict, the Romans seem to have shifted their strategy toward a more peaceful approach. The vast desert made direct conquest and long-term occupation an impractical choice. As a result, the empire turned its attention to diplomacy and trade as more sustainable alternatives. During this period of calm, there was a 4th peaceful Roman expedition to Garamantia that took place in AD 90. A merchant named Julius Maternus traveled to Garama and then joined the Garamantian king on a 4-month expedition to a land Maternus called Agisimba, which many historians believe to be the area surrounding Lake Chad. It seems that the Garamantes had hegemony over these lands, while in Agisimba, the Garamantes displayed their power over this region by hunting a variety of wild animals, including ostriches, wild donkeys, apes, and elephants. They also attacked the people living there, likely capturing some and bringing them home as slaves. Additionally, the Garamantes captured 2 live rhinoceroses, which they gifted to the Romans. Maternus escorted the animals back to Rome, where they performed in the Colosseum. Maternus's expedition is an indication that relations between the Garamantes and the Romans had improved dramatically. By fostering ties with the Garamantian kingdom, both the Roman and Garamantian economies greatly benefited, with the Garamantes growing to the height of their power. At the start of the 3rd century, relations with the Roman Empire began to deteriorate once again. In AD 193, Emperor Septimius Severus became the first Roman emperor of African origin. Born in Leptis Magna, Severus may have directly experienced the destructive raids of the Garamantes. When he became emperor, Severus decided to attack the Garamantes, going so far as to capture Garama and temporarily occupy the city in AD 202. After withdrawing from the kingdom, Septimius greatly strengthened a series of forts called the Limes Tripolitanus along the Roman frontier in northern Africa. From here, things only got worse for the Romans and the Garamantes. Starting in AD 235, Rome began experiencing the crisis of the 3rd century. This was a period of chaos that lasted for nearly 50 years until AD 284. During this period, Rome was racked by civil war, had over 25 emperors, and was invaded on multiple fronts. These events had a detrimental effect on the Roman economy, indirectly affecting the prosperity of Rome's neighbors, including the Garamantes. According to David Mattingly, when events in the 3rd century AD caused the decline of the main coastal export ports, Sabratha, Uea, and Leptis Magna, the link between the trans-Saharan trade system and the wider Mediterranean markets of the Roman world was disrupted. Imports of Roman pottery and other goods to Garamantia decline from the late 3rd century AD. The decline in trade with Rome also meant that the Garamantes had less goods to trade with their sub-Saharan counterparts. This led to a shortage of slave labor, meaning the Garamantes no longer had the manpower needed to maintain the fogeras. Throughout their centuries-long history, the Garamantes had consumed billions of gallons of water from the aquifers, water that was not being replenished. Over time, the water table fell to a level too deep for the fogaras to access. In response, the Garamantes attempted to modify the fogaras, but their efforts were ultimately unsuccessful. Lacking the necessary slave labor to deepen the fogaras, they had no choice but to abandon them in favor of wells, which required far less labor to dig and maintain. However, the wells also produced less water, reducing food production and contributing to population decline. Around this time, the Garamantes began to place more of an emphasis on defensive fortifications. Centralized Garamantian authority had begun to break down, fragmenting into smaller regional factions. Through a combination of economic decline, overuse of its water resources, and political instability, the Garamantian kingdom began an irreversible decline. The kingdom lingered on until finally meeting its end when it was overrun by Islamic invaders in the 7th century. The Garamantes rose to greatness against all odds. They controlled trade across the Sahara, built cities in the middle of the desert, and irrigated fields with tunnels that stretched for miles beneath the sand. But their strength rested on fragile foundations, economic dependence on Rome, and a finite store of water. Today, the fogeras that stretch for miles beneath the desert sands remain as silent witnesses to a people who turned the Sahara green, and whose achievements still challenge our assumptions about the limits of the ancient world. Though they eventually disappeared, the Garamantes left behind a record of human possibility, showing that even the desert can bloom. If you'd like to learn more about forgotten kingdoms of the past, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and take a look at our other videos.